Is it me, or are cases getting a bit boring, a bit bland, a bit, I don't know, vanilla? Sure, we've had some pretty cool stuff with useless features, which we're then charged the earth for, but not everyone can afford a case like that. Remember, most average consumers and gamers are on restricted budgets, but that normally means they miss out on features that are actually important, or miss out on the most vital part of any PC, airflow. Well, not anymore. Fractal believe they have the answer with the Pop series of cases that take convention and everything you know about being bland and boring and literally throw it out the window. But before we get into that, here's a quick word from this video sponsor.
Andy, what are you watching?
It's not what you think.
Wow, it's so big!
Why, thank you. It's the new AOC AG493 UCX. 49 inches of pure performance and a refresh rate of 120 Hz. It's so fast. You can even do 2 at a time.
What?
You can connect 2 devices at a time and split the screen. With FreeSync Premium Pro, a 32:9 aspect ratio and a built-in KVM, you'll be finished in no time. Gaming, I mean. What did you think I mean? Get your mind out the gutter and click the link in the description to find out more. So you may remember when the Fractal Torrent case came out. I couldn't say enough nice things about it. I mean, it was amazing. It took airflow and dialed it up to 11 and looked like nothing any manufacturer had ever done before. And it worked. But how would they follow up on something as bold as that? Well, that's where the Pop series comes in. Now, I say series because they are releasing a total of 6 ranges of cases today, and in a ton of different colours. Not only is there 9 SKUs in the Pop Air range, but there's also 3 silent versions along with 2 XL models, 2 XL silent models, and the same for the mini versions. What I can tell you is that I'll be posting up tons of pictures of this one on our Patreon behind the scenes channel on our Discord, so definitely sign up to see more. So we've got the Pop Air Cyan Core Clear TG. Not the most glamorous name in the world, but I'm kind of digging the blue. It's almost like it sort of matches with our colour scheme at eTeknix. Almost. So it's a mid-tower and is in typical kind of Fractal design. See what I did there? Longer in depth but shorter in height and slimmer than other comparable cases on the market as well. Giving you a kind of bit of an illusion that it looks a lot smaller, though when building inside, that's anything but the case. Case. I slay myself. So being the Pop Air Cyan Core Clear TG, we instantly know we're getting tempered glass on one side. The air part comes in where it matters, the front, which has a similar kind of mesh style that we've seen on the Meshify range of cases from Fractal, with a slightly raised hexagonal design, whereas the silent model swaps this out for a solid panel instead. Now, one of the strangest things I've seen over the last few years is the panel below, which is a plastic cover held on by magnets, which once removed gives you access to 2 5¼ inch drive bay spaces. Yes, you heard right, DVD drive bays. I mean, I'm not even sure what year this is, but for people clinging on to their old case for that very reason, your prayers have finally been answered. Now, to install the drives, you will have to sacrifice your hard drive cage, though luckily that's been thought about too, because you can move one of them to sit behind the cable routing space, so you don't miss out. The strangeness doesn't end there, because if you don't want to use a 5¼ inch drive, then the Pop comes with a handy plastic tray, which apparently is made for storing small items such as memory cards, flash drives, or spare screws. Or for us, the eTeknix PC Toolkit, available on store.eteknix.com. You know you want it. Now, if you want to get some more access inside, you can actually take the front panel off, but I feel that brands are having a kind of fun game with us at this point, as I swear, cases from a few years ago weren't this difficult to remove. And with the Pop, it literally takes the whole front off and takes some big effort to do so. Maybe it's a sign of quality, or maybe it's an oversight. Either way, behind it we find 2 120mm aspect RGB fans included, and room for 2 140s if you wanted to swap them out, or space for a 240mm rad instead. It's nice and all, but other cases on the market actually accept 3 120mm fans, so I'm not sure what's up with that. I mean, couldn't they have just made it a little bigger to fit? Now the rest of the case, it's pretty standard from the outside. We have a dust filter at the top and space for another two 120 or 140mm fans, or another 240mm rad, though thickness may come into play depending on your motherboard's included VRM cooling. Though Fractal do actually include some brackets, which they kind of position and help sort of with the location of your radiator or AIO so that they don't actually interfere with each other, which is nice, though I have to admit, I do feel there's potentially space here that could have been used to fit up to 360mm worth of fans or radiators. But then I'm not a case designer. Also, it's worth noting that if you're buying the Pop Silent, it does actually ditch this complete sort of area for fan space in favour of blocking this whole area up, in favour of, you guessed it, silence. Now, one thing I am liking is the small amount of blue that matches the inside of the case up around the I/O, which I have to admit, I am a little disappointed. While we do have two USB 3.0 ports, audio jacks, and on the RGB version of the case, buttons to control the lighting, USB Type-C comes as an optional add-on. I mean, come on, this case is cheap, and I'll get to that shortly, but I'd happily pay another couple of quid for a Type-C to, be available as standard. Sorry Fractal, but I think it's a bit of an oversight on your behalf. Now, the only other cooling on the case is the included 120mm fan on the rear, and while there's no fan hub, all of the included fans are daisy chainable to make things a bit easier, especially when it comes to cable management. So inside, this is where things go a bit abstract, and being the cyan core, it's as you'd expect, and I get that not everyone is going to like it, but I kind of dig it. And with a SKU for literally every taste, there's no room for complaints. Apart from the green, I can find complaint in that. I mean, it's ugly, but each to their own. So it's a small mid-tower, but it still accepts full-size ATX motherboards and has room for 170mm CPU coolers like the Noctua NHD15S, as well as space for up to 365mm long graphics cards with the front fans in place. So for those of you with 3090 Ti's, it fits in, which is pretty impressive given the size of the pop. Now, one thing you'll notice is that there is a lack of grommets as such, in a move that we've seen becoming more and more common. Instead of random holes and cutouts here, there and everywhere, Fractal has gone with a single long slit that runs parallel to the motherboard, making cable management much easier. The only other spaces we have are down on the PSU shroud for our front panel connectors and USB headers, so pretty standard stuff. For storage, you have a few options, including space for hard drives, SSDs, and those Relic optical drives for those of you who are stuck in the early 2000s. But regardless of what you go for, it's nice to see some kind of flexibility and having the options. And with the option of having drives on display or completely hidden, the space has been used well. But again, to maximise those options, you'll need to spend a little more money on brackets that are sold separately. I mean, why were they not included? You'll also be restricted somewhat to power supplies of 150mm in length, but if you're not using the brackets for any form of drives, then you do get given some more usable space back. And with most typical users having M.2 and a single SSD or hard drive as a secondary storage, you could always move one of the brackets around to make it work for you. So it's a bit hit or miss, and I can sense some of the logic with the Pop Air, and for the most part it feels as though some of the, let's say, design choices have been made to cut costs. And the good news is that those cost savings have been passed on to you, as the model I have here is launching for £81.99p in the UK, £89.99 in the US, and £94.99 in Europe, which puts it about 10% cheaper than the Corsair 4000D Airflow, which, while it accepts large components and could be argued has more features, it's lacking RGB. And if you're wanting that, then the 4000X is going to cost you even more on top. So the big question is, when it comes to performance, how does it actually stack up, especially against the likes of the Corsair 4000D Airflow? Firstly, if you want to find out more about how we test, then there is a link down below to our video going through our complete testing methodology for cases, the hardware we use, and exactly how we do it. So definitely check that out. On our CPU temperature at idle, it was in the mix, though did run ever so slightly warmer than the 4000D Airflow. At load, under Prime 95 and Firmark, we saw temperatures increase to around the same level as the bestseller from Corsair, and still within reasonable levels when compared to the other cases we tested against. For our GPU at idle, it was the hottest reading we've had, albeit by less than 1 degree, when looking at the super expensive Corsair 5000T. At load, it does redeem itself when compared against the 4000D Airflow by less than 1 degree, and again, still within where we'd expect it to be, if not better, considering the price point of this case. Our chipset at idle was running on the hotter side when comparing against the other cases we're comparing against, but nothing out of the ordinary. And at load we saw it ramp up quite dramatically, yet still fall just below the metrics of the slightly more expensive 4000D airflow. Our M.2 idle clearly wasn't getting the cooling it needed with some pretty high temperatures, though at load it didn't climb as high as other cases we've tested, so could be argued that it did okay under the circumstances. So simulated worst case scenario load out the way and looking at gaming performance, our CPU temperature stayed within the realms of what we'd expect for a case of this caliber and still managed to run slightly cooler than the 4000D airflow. Our GPU actually came in with the second best result we've ever had, only being beaten by Fractal's very own Torrent case, which is a beast and costs dramatically more money too. Our chipset temperature comes out somewhere in the middle and all within a degree or so of each other. Again, looking at the data compared to the 4000D airflow, things are looking pretty good. Finally, our M.2 SSD fares pretty well at 41.7 degrees, a whopping 5.5 degrees lower than the 4000D airflow from Corsair, and only being beaten by the more expensive cases from NZXT and by Fractal themselves. Okay, so let's break it down. Performance was good, but not exactly groundbreaking. It's basically where I expected it to be, teetering somewhere in the middle. But it's very clear to see that it's a better performer at load when comparing to similar cases for around the same kind of money. Yes, you could argue it runs a little warmer at idle, but I think that's mainly down to the fans and the fan curve, which if you're that bothered by a couple of degrees at idle and don't mind sacrificing for a little extra noise, you could always tweak the fan curve to kind of better suit your goal with your system. And yeah, I mean, be prepared, as it will be louder. How much louder? Well, at idle, the pop was on the louder side of things, only really being beaten by NZXT's H7 Elite, which was just stupidly loud in the first place. Yes, some of the other cases come with less fans, so of course they're going to be quieter, but that's the trade-off when focusing on noise versus temperature. At load, things fall a bit more back in line and we see the Fractal Pop Air sitting more middle of the road and still with some pretty respectable numbers overall. Okay, so I'm torn, and I'd like to think you'll be in agreement with me. I get what Fractal are trying to do with the Pop series and the Pop Air specifically, and I kind of like the idea of, different colours you can get. It breaks the mould of convention, and it's nice to see something different again. And from a performance standpoint, it's good. Like I say, it's not groundbreaking, but I wasn't expecting it to be. And I think Fractal knew that it wouldn't be either, and that's okay. Because when looking at performance, it's easily reflected in the price. And compared to the competition, it is actually the better performer overall when looking at value for money. Also, compared to the competition, you get more fans, and addressable RGB ones at that, which is a nice touch. But I kind of feel that's where it stops. Feature-wise, it's perfectly fine, and accepts the things you'd expect it to accept. But I feel they could have pushed it a little more. And these are things that are just a bit niggly for me. The fact that you're expected to pay extra for USB Type-C, and that from my own very technical analysis of simply staring at the case and it looking like it will fit, that 240mm is the max you can do on the top. And the same at the front. I just feel it could go a little bit bigger. Other similar cases on the market are a smidge taller and a little bit wider, but they can accept more. They can accept 2 more fans, and I guess that's why Fractal are releasing the Pop XL as well, and for those then wanting smaller, the Pop Mini, but it kind of makes it a weird position. So I don't know, maybe it was a conscious design choice so they could upsell you to one of the other models, which, I don't know, maybe we will look at getting one in and we can do a direct comparison in the future. For now, yeah, it's an odd one. Let me know what you think in the comments section below. Does it tick enough of the right boxes to make it a viable option? I mean, for the money, you have to admit, it's pretty damn good value for money. So there you have it. Hopefully you enjoyed this video. If you did, a like and a sub to the channel would be amazing. And if you love what we do, consider supporting us on Patreon. The link is down below. And with that, I'll see you in the next one. See you later, guys. Bye-bye.